Well, hello everybody. What's up, fight community? Today is June 7th, 2018, and this is Raphael Garcia back for episode 87 of the MMA Ratings Podcast. I want to say thank you, as always, for joining our show and listening to our content. You can be sure to catch everything that we produce if you just click the subscribe button and stay in tune with our YouTube channel. As always, you can go over to MMA Ratings Net to catch all the articles that myself, Schwan Humes, Adam Martin, and sometimes Michael Ford put together for your enjoyment. We're always talking about a lot of different things going on in the sport today, so you can catch that there. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter at MMA Ratings Net. As always, man, and thank you guys for taking your time, checking us out, listening to what we're putting out there, and just enjoying us on this ride. It's been quite a while since we started this show, and as always, man, we thank you each and every night for your support and joining us every Thursday. We got a hell of a lot to talk about because this is a pretty big week, and I'm not going to front, man. I am excited about this week in mixed martial arts, even for the PFL card. Tonight we got so much to really kind of look at, and I had an agenda put together and I had some news that I wanted to start with, but as I sit here and look at it, I think I want to jump right into this weekend's card. I mean, that is basically the end all be all, because there's a hell of a fight card this weekend. I was debating with someone on Twitter today about whether or not it's a big fight, and I think definitely easily figure this is the biggest fight of 2018. So let's go ahead and let's jump right into that. Maybe we'll come back to some news later on and talk about some of that stuff, but I want to first and foremost jump right into the conversation around UFC 225, which is scheduled for this Saturday, and it will be brought to us from, I have absolutely no idea where the hell this event is going down. Is it Vegas, California, Chicago? Yeah, that's right. Fuck Chicago. I forgot all about CM Punk. But yes, this is in Chicago, and it features two title fights. At the top of the docket, we have Robert Whitaker and Yoel Romero, with the co-main event being Rafael dos Anjos versus Colby Covington. The middleweight and welterweight titles are up for grabs, and I want to start there. But when you start there, that's just not where the conversation ends. I mean, you have this fight. You have Holly Holm, Megan Anderson, Andre Arlovski versus Taya Tuivasa. I mean, you got CM Punk, Mike Jackson, Overeem Blades, Gedalia Esparza, Lamas Mirzabetic. You have Rashad Evans on this card, Joseph Benavidez, Sergio Pettis, Clay Guida, and Charles Oliveira. This card is definitely stacked, and there's a lot to kind of talk about here. And we're not going to, even if Schwan does join me, we're not going to break down every single fight, but there are some storylines that you definitely want to hit on anytime you talk about this card. And first and foremost, we got to look at the main event. Even though this fight isn't getting as much attention as I feel like it should, there's definitely something missing there. We have to talk about this main event because the middleweight division is really going to be set ablaze here. You have Robert Whitaker versus Yoel Romero, and it's kind of weird because how can I? It's odd, You have on one side you have a champion who I believe he defeated Romero for the interim title. Never had the opportunity to face Michael Bisping, who lost the belt to GSP, who then dropped the title, and then that made Whitaker's belt the real belt, I believe. Then Whitaker was forced out of a fight with Luke Rockhold for the title, and Yoel Romero was inserted. That fight was made into an interim title fight. Then Romero missed weight, making him unable to become the champion, and he goes on to knock out Luke Rockhold, basically putting this belt or this situation out there. I don't even know. Is the title officially vacant? Let me look real quick. I am not even really sure. Yeah, Whitaker is the champion. Okay. Okay, yeah, so Whitaker is the official champion. All right, so no problem. Now this fight is a rematch of their fight from, I believe it was 2017. Yeah, their fight from July of 2017, just about a year ago, which was Whitaker's last fight before he got the health injuries and that that nasty scare with Staff. So let's really kind of start there and let's talk about this middleweight fight here, because what I'm interested the most in is how both of these men are different than 1 year ago. Romero, since that fight, Romero has fought since when he lost to Whitaker. You know, and the only other fight he took was against Rocco, where he won via knockout in the third round. And Luke Thomas at MMA Fighting and on MMA Beat and all that other stuff really talks about how Rockhold, or excuse me, how Romero is kind of coming into his own as a competitor, and how he's getting to know himself and how he should fight better, or how he should fight to better fit his style per se each and every outing, which I think is definitely true. It's definitely, he is fighting in a more, I don't know if reserved is the right word to say, but he's fighting as if he knows his limitations. He knows that he can't be out there going all explosive the whole time. He knows he can't do that. He knows that he has to fight at a more controlled pace. And one thing Luke has been saying is, if you watch how Romero fights in the first round as compared to the second and third, it's almost as if his body's prepared for the rapid explosion that's needed for him to get off some of those big strikes that lead to big wins. Look at his knockout over Chris Weidman back at, let's see, that was UFC 205, where he landed that flying knee. It's as if someone was playing a video game and they like pushed the button as hard as they can, and his body immediately reacted. That type of athleticism, it's it's rare in professional sports, but to see him still doing this at this age is amazing. It almost makes you think of Vince Carter in the NBA, half man, half insanity. You think that yes, he's slowing down, but his slowing down is almost everyone else's regular speed. And I don't mean everyone else like regular human beings, not athletes. I'm talking about everyone else within the NBA. The man can still dunk like he's nobody's business. If you ever watch some of the warm up videos of him still throwing it down, the dude could probably win a slam dunk contest today. And the same thing could be said about Romero. He's 41 years old. 41 years old, and he is probably one of the top 5 athletes, regardless of division across the sport. Think about that. The man's 41. He's a former Olympic silver medalist and a world champion in freestyle wrestling. The dude can fucking go. Period. What's his name? Danny Segura on MMA Beat today was saying that Romero was doing an interview earlier this week, and he was talking about how he wishes he would have gotten into MMA at a younger age, because now he is slowing down. Could you imagine if he was 25 performing the way he does? If he was 21, like look at some of the guys that are cutting the corner. Look at Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, Sean O'Malley, Mackenzie Dern. All these individuals are about, what, 25 and younger? Ortega maybe 26. Think of someone at that skill level with his type of athleticism. And, I mean, the ceiling is basically, like Michael Jordan said, I think the ceiling is the roof, or whatever the hell he said that last year, which was a pretty funny meme. But Yoel as a athlete is just substantial, and he's facing a guy in Whitaker who's defeated him before, and is a very tough opponent for any man at all. And you have to wonder if this fight is going to look a lot like the first fight that occurred. Me personally, you guys, if you're long-time listeners to this show, you know my stance. I am not a fan of picking people who have had extended time away from the cage. I just feel like that, yes, you can prepare for your fight, and you can train, you can do whatever you need to do, but being away from the fight game, especially the way Whitaker has with two serious health situations, I think it hinders you when you return. Look at John Jones when he came back, when he fought OSP. Even though he was healthy the whole time and he was training the whole time, you saw him look like a better athlete than he was before he left when he returned. But he was off in that fight, and he didn't look like himself before he turned around and defeated Daniel Cormier to get the belt back. He needed to knock some of that rust off. I wonder if Whitaker is going to be in the same type of situation heading into this fight, because he's been away for a year. There's a substantial amount of time where he could not train, where he could not compete. So you have to wonder if he will be, I know he'll be mentally prepared to face the challenge. The question is whether or not he'll be physically prepared and aware to get back in the cage and get back in at this level. This is an important fight, and I'm really intrigued to see which way it's going to go. Schwan is usually my guy to make picks. I'm not the one who usually makes picks. It's funny, there's actually a Twitter feed going on right now. Hunter Hornets put it out there about what's the worst fight prediction you've ever made, and I had a couple of options that I could pick from. So I'm not going to sit here and make a decision, but I am definitely intrigued in this main event. I think it could kind of go either way. I am looking forward to the action, and looking at middleweight as a whole, it's kind of wide open, and it's going to be after this fight here, because let's look at the rankings real quick. So we have Whitaker and Romero. Rocco's going up to 25 or 205. You have Chris Weidman. Kelvin Gastelum is an interesting opponent for anyone to me. You still have Sosa there. Derek Brunson, David Branch, and Brad Tavares are all making their way up. Brad Tavares is fighting Israel Adesanya later on this year. You have Elias Theodoros kind of making a push. Antonio Carlos Jr., Paulo Costa. You have guys that are making a push who are kind of driving their way up the ladder to see if they can become some interesting contenders. So this fight is important. I think Robert Whitaker was saying in an interview today that this is kind of like the start of his reign. He's held onto that belt. He hasn't defended it yet. Now we're going to see what his story is going to be. What is his legacy going to be? We want to start having that conversation after tomorrow or Saturday's fight. And then you have Romero. One thing I really want to point out, look at this guy's run. Since joining the UFC in 2013, he's defeated Luke Rockhold, former champion, former Strikeforce and UFC champion, Chris Weidman, former champion, Jacare Souza, former champion, Lyoto Machida, former champion, Tim Kennedy, former Strikeforce challenger. He's defeated Brad Tavares, who's ranked number 8 in the division right now. He's defeated Derek Brunson, who's ranked number 6. He's been putting on quite a run that's worth respecting and worth recognizing from start to finish. I don't think you want to kind of bat your eye at that any way, shape, or form. So this is a pretty big fight for Saturday. I'm looking forward to it. Then you have the co-main event. All right, I'm going to mute my mic for a second here, but you have the co-main event because I have to take a deep breath. So on one side of the docket, we have Raphael dos Anjos, and I wrote a piece about him on MMAratings.net, talking about his position in history. You know, if he wins tomorrow, it will be an interim title. I understand someone asterisk put around that, but he will be the fourth man to win two titles in two divisions. Let me see. Schwan's trying to join us today. So he'll be the fourth man, I think. Couture, McGregor, Penn, GSP, the fifth guy to win two belts in two divisions. So you have that. Some are he'll be the first Brazilian to do so. So some are wondering, is he the best Brazilian to ever perform in MMA? My biggest thing with Dos Anjos is if you think back to when this guy started, he started at UFC 91 10 years ago. And this is a guy who struggled quickly in the UFC. People remember him getting his head knocked off facing Jeremy Stevens. That's a highlight that Jeremy Stevens still uses to this day. Whenever they talk about Little Heathen, that uppercut, they play. Then we remember him getting defeated by Clay Guida and Tyson Griffin, two great wrestlers that were able to defeat him. Gleason Tebow, another great wrestler, was able to defeat him. Khabib Nurmagomedov wrestled him around the cage too as well. So that's what I'm looking forward to Schwan talking about most, because on paper, if you look at it from a resume standpoint, Covington is the best wrestler that RDA has ever faced. You have to wonder how much of a hindrance that will cause RDA at this point. He's talking about it. If you've looked at it, if you've read any of his interviews or looked at any of the videos, he's talking about it in a way that he's not that same fighter that was defeated by Nurmagomedov 4 years ago, but he's still facing someone who is a better takedown artist than he is. So it will be interesting to see if he's prepared for that. But with that in mind, RDA is the better striker, and we've seen his volume be able to overcome guys. Look at what he did to Robbie Lawler when he basically overcame the former champion from start to finish. You can talk about his ACL was messed up. Yes, it was. But even before that point, RDA was putting it on him and putting it on him wholeheartedly throughout that fight. So it'd be interesting to see if RDA can do that same thing to Covington. I remember when he did it to Pettis, people were kind of like sitting back and watching, like surprised that he was able to do so. Pettis being the better athlete through and through, the better natural physical athlete, RDA would still be able to go in there, put it on him, put it on him, put it on him. So that's exactly what you have to wonder if that is going to be the talking point coming in to Saturday. But abilities and in-ring or in-cage acumen and in-cage tactics and strategies aside, you have to talk about Colby Covington. You have to talk about what he does to garner attention outside the cage. 1 second. So Covington is doing a good job in drawing attention. He's doing a good job in pissing people off. I think David Doyle was talking about Saturday being a make or break situation for him, because it's really kind of his time. It's really kind of his time to see if he is going to make it through and get a win, because it's kind of like it's the set-off point for him. If he gets a big win, I'm not going to say he can claim himself to be a big star, but that's kind of headed in the right step. But at the same time, you have to wonder about his shtick and just how far is too far. That's kind of the question I have. Yes, I understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to garner attention, draw ratings, get on people's nerves, etc., etc. But you almost have to. What he reminds me of is he reminds me of that kid. We all know this kid growing up, the one who would tell a funny joke or do something funny, and then would continue to do the same thing or try to do something else funny, just try to get the attention. He reminds me of that kid, and at some point in time, that kid got annoying as fuck. Colby Covington is headed towards that destination of being annoying as fuck, and I don't mean that. I'm not one of these people that say, "Oh, I don't care about him. I don't care about him," but I want to tell you how much I hate him. No, it's not that. My question about it is how far is too far? Because I believe we're going to find out if Covington continues talking and ranting. Like you see him on, I think on MMA fighting, or maybe that was a UFC's Instagram account. He's posting, talking about he's going to win the belt and take it to Donald Trump's office, et cetera, et cetera. He's talking about the Philadelphia Eagles for not going to the White House. He's calling Brazilians filthy animals. I mean, someone made a joke about him a couple years back that if he does fight Tyron Woodley, he's going to show up in Missouri in an All Lives Matter T-shirt or Blue Lives Matter T-shirt. And the thing is, I wouldn't put that shit past him. It's funny at first, and it might get a chuckle out of you to think about for a quick second, but also it's borderline fucking inappropriate, and it's just like there's a line. As Dave Chappelle once put it, Colby Covington is a habitual line stepper, and we're going to see how many times he's willing to step over the line to get a rise out of everyone in hopes of getting more views, in hopes of getting a bigger payday. Do I think that is going to pay off? We never know. I think it's totally different than what Conor McGregor was doing. That felt more genuine. The guys on MMA Beat were comparing Covington to Andy Kaufman, and if you're familiar with pro wrestling or you're from a history standpoint, you know who Andy Kaufman was. Andy Kaufman was he was a man who used to wrestle women, basically beat up women, and he made like an intergender belt for it. It was just comedy through and through. So he got his ass kicked by Jerry the King Lawler. To say Covington has a, I guess, a persona that's akin to that, I wouldn't argue that. I can, again, like I always keep saying, I see what he's doing. I see what he's trying to do. I see what he's trying to put forth. But at some point in time, enough is enough. And you have to wonder if we're going to find out how far Covington is willing to go, and if that point is going to be too far, and that the UFC is really trying to, yes, they have carved out a strong portion of MMA viewership within the United States, within areas like UK, Brazil, Canada, the Asian market. They've carved out areas of that market where viewers will continuously come back to their product. But if they are looking to expand into additional markets where there's other minority groups, you have to wonder how far is too far with a guy like Covington saying and doing all the things that he's doing. There has to be a limit to that conversation at some point in time. Hold on 1 second, guys. There has to be a limit to that conversation at some point in time. You got to wonder how far it's going to go. Give me 1 second. Let me get Schwan in the chat. So yes, you have to wonder just how far Covington is willing to go to get a rise out of people. Because if he's willing to go too far, then they may have a conversation. The UFC may have a problem on their hands that they have to deal with, much like you saw with the Andrea KGB Lee situation that occurred over the weekend. We're going to talk about that at a later time in the show. So, Schwan, how you doing there, sir?
Good. How about yourself?
Good, man. I'm hearing a lot of static, and you're kind of breaking up a little bit. So let's get that squared away. You good there?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Much better, much more clear. You joined us at the perfect timing, man, because I want to hear your breakdown of Colby Covington versus RDA. Because I was talking to somebody about it the other day. RDA has a propensity to get beat by wrestlers. Covington is, on paper, the best wrestler he's faced at this point in time. Tell me why this fight is going to be different, or why it's going to be more of the same for RDA.
Covington is a good wrestler, but the thing about it is he's not a guy who just automatically shoots like right out the gate. He likes to apply a lot of pressure and throw hands to kind of force you backwards and cut the cage off from you so he can get his hands on you and take you down. The problem with that is the previous problem RDA had is he was more of a Muay Thai striker, and what he would do is he would try to pressure you and stand right in front of you because he wanted, as soon as you threw something, he wanted to throw something right back equally as hard keep you from putting your combinations together. But now RDA's his boxing footwork's gotten a little bit better. He's got more of an active jab. His pivots and his turns are a little bit sharper. So what I'm thinking is that the crispness of his footwork is going to allow him to kind of control and navigate the distance a little bit, so that Covington can't be right at the spots that he wants to get in to get the takedown. Because even if you're a wrestler and you know, because you grapple and you had a wrestling background, you can't just run at somebody and get a takedown. I mean, unless you're somebody terrible. But even in most cases, you have to get in certain position so that you can get a takedown or you can get a clean takedown. Taking someone down halfway or being sloppy in the takedown just opens you up for a submission, which is what happened to Covington versus Morley. So Covington's going to be a little hesitant in the first place, but I'm thinking that what RDA is going to do is he's going to try to pressure him. He's going to be trying to pressure him to make him fire his punches, and when he fires the punches, he's going to counter him. So essentially, what he's going to do is try to back Covington up, and try to make him feel pressured, feel threatened, so that he panic wrestles or so that he comes in with a hard flurry that he can counter him on. Because he needs something to transition that distance so that he can get to RDA's hips. And now that RDA has that foot where he can pivot a little bit, he can feint a little bit. He's got that jab and he's able to feint the shots and then follow up with other shots. I think that might disrupt Covington just a little bit, just enough for RDA to start, either for RDA to counter the takedown with a big shot, or for RDA to be able to kind of get off the center line a little bit to defend it. And then once he defends it, it becomes like a clinch battle. And if they're going to be in the clinch, it's a 50-50 proposition for RDA or Covington.
So when you look at this fight here, I don't know what the odds are. Who are you looking at as the winner to come out in this interim title fight on Saturday? Let me look at the odds while you think about that. You there?
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you were going to say something else. But the biggest thing with Covington is we talked about this a little bit before. He hasn't faced anybody who has really been, I guess, on his level as far as conditioning or physicality or even all-round talent. He's faced guys who are kind of tailor-made for his skill set. And that's why I've been so kind of underwhelmed by what he's done. Even his biggest win is Damian Maia. Damian Maia is a guy who's not a very good wrestler, a guy who's not a very good striker offensively or defensively, and a guy who's had, especially as he's gotten older, has had notorious gas tank issues. So my biggest question with Covington is, what are you going to do when when you're not able to dictate where the fight goes, when you're not able to intimidate guys with your pressure, when you're not able to wear someone down over the length of a fight? Because he's always had that advantage. Against RDA, he's not going to have that advantage. And I don't know that he has the experience. I don't know that he's been in tough enough spots that if he's put in a bad spot, that he can navigate his way through it. RDA's been in with the elite of the 55 division, even guys like Clay Guida, Tony Ferguson, guys who can keep pace, guys who are very physically tough, guys who are very savvy because they fought 20 or 30 times. Eddie Alvarez, an all-time great, a guy who's very savvy, he fought in every major promotion, fought at every level, at every type of opponent. So we know that RDA can navigate tough spots. We know that he can keep himself out of trouble. We know he can work his way out of trouble. We don't know any of that with Colby Covington. His whole thing is he basically puts pressure on you. His footwork is good. His strikes are, in my opinion, terrible. His footwork is good, but a lot of it is I'm pressuring you. I'm going to wear you down. And as you get tired, that's when I'm going to come on. That's when I get the takedown. That's when I counter you. That's when I get you up against the cage and beat you up. I don't know that he's going to be able to exhaust RDA. I don't know that he's going to be able to manhandle him. I know for a fact that he can't strike with him on the feet. So the biggest weapon he has is his takedown. If RDA is not concerned about the takedown, but if RDA is able to control the distance and navigate the angles well enough, the takedown is no longer an issue. Once the takedown is no longer an issue, the fight swings in RDA's favor like 70-30 easily. Because even though Covington is a willing striker, he's not a very good.
You're breaking up, man. You're breaking up.
I said, if Damian Maia is touching you up for a round and a half, you're just not that good on the feet. And everybody saw that fight where Damian Maia was taking it to him for a round and a half.
So, like, there's definitely some very factual and key analysis that you brought out there. Colby Covington is the minus 130 favorite right now, which doesn't surprise me, but it's still worth noting as well. It doesn't really surprise me fully, but it just kind of stands out there.
If you look at it superficially, he's the best wrestler. He's the younger guy. He's an athletic guy. If going by RDA's previous losses, you would just have to assume he's going to take him down and control him. But the thing about it is, even when RDA was taken down, the fact of the matter is he never quit. He never stopped fighting. We have no idea that when a guy takes another guy down, a lot of fighters they try to tie up and hold on to position. Hopefully the ref will stand up, where they kind of give in mentally. But if you have a guy you taking down and he's constantly fighting for position, whether it's deep, reverse, or work for a submission, that forces you to work. And if Colby Covington is forced to work in the first round and the second round, work to get him in position, work to get the takedown, work to keep him down, we don't know that Colby Covington can keep that pace. But a lot of people are just assuming that RDA is the same fighter, that he's going to fall for the same thing. But as I said before, even when he was taken down, he was constantly fighting for position. He was trying to work for a submission. I don't know that Colby Covington can maintain a pace versus a guy who's not going to fade after a round or two of hard contact, hard grappling, and hard striking, which you know RDA is not going to be the best condition athlete in the sport. So, officially, you see a wrestler against RDA, that should be an instant win for Covington. You have to take into account the lack of experience, you have to take into account the fact that he's never really been tested, and you have to take into account that he's never faced a guy who can kind of match his pace or match his physicality. All those things are things you haven't faced before. If you face them, you start to panic, you start to work hard, you might overextend yourself, and that leads to getting countered, that leads to getting submitted, that leads to blowing your load early. You got 3 rounds to go, and now you got this guy coming on, and you have nothing left. So while I see why they picked Covington, and that makes sense on a superficial, basic level of strategy and assessment, if you look in the deeper layers of it, there's a lot of reasons for comparing Covington. Mainly his defensive striking, mainly the fact he hasn't gone 5 rounds, and the fact he's never been in a fight, been put to test and cardio or in regards to physicality or athleticism. All 3 of those things are going to happen in this fight. We know that RDA will tough it out. We have no idea what's going to happen. And I can't bet on someone who I have no idea how he's going to respond when he's tough.
Okay, true. Check on your connection too, man, because you're still kind of breaking up and out, in and out. So check on that for me. But as we move on, let's talk about some of the other things going on in this card, because this card is kind of stacked from top to bottom, as I've really been saying and looking at all week. The next fight on the docket is Holly Holm and Megan Anderson here, and this is at featherweight here, and this is an important fight because, man, look at this. I just saw Brad Tavares is out of his fight against Israel Adesanya. We'll come back to that later. But Holly Holm, Megan Anderson here. Is Holly Holm becoming a gatekeeper? Because Megan Anderson is the woman that a lot of people tabbed as being a big challenge for Chris Cyborg. Then clearly, if she defeats Holm, regardless of if it's close or a blowout, she's next in line for a shot at the current featherweight champion here. What are your thoughts about about this fight? Should we begin looking at Holm as a gatekeeper? Has she kind of jumped the shark, as some say? Is her time as a top contender over and done with?
I'm not too sure that I see Holly as a gatekeeper. I get why that is. She's like, won in her last 4 fights? But the fact of the matter is, one of the girls who beat her is no longer in this division. Another girl who beat her retired. And the other losses she has are at featherweight. So I can't really say that she's faded or gatekeeper, because she's only lost to elite people for the most part. I mean, except for the case of Brandami, which was a favorable style matchup for Jermaine. She hasn't lost anybody who's not top 3, top 2 in their division. I don't know if I could say she's a journey woman at this stage. I understand what they're trying to do, because she's still considered elite, even in bantamweight and featherweight, because of the lack of talent. She's no worse than maybe top 5, maybe top 3, even though she doesn't have. I can't think of 3 other featherweights outside of. I can't think of 3 other featherweights I know for a fact are better than Holly Holm right now. So I don't think she's a journey woman. I think what it is she has name value, and they figure if she beats Anderson, she a rematch with Anderson beats her. It basically punches their ticket and establishes her to Cyborg, even though we all know better than that.
So when you look at, if you look at Cyborg and an Anderson fight there, let's take a step back before we even get to that conversation yet. Is Anderson the woman that can defeat Holm and then go on to face Cyborg?
On a certain level, she can beat Holm. We've seen Holm get beaten before. So it's not like there's some riddle that hasn't been figured out. Anderson's got
You're
good
breaking up,
mental.
Schwan.
She's got good educated footwork. She's gonna be huge, much bigger than Holly Holm, and she doesn't hit with great. Holly Holm's been through a lot of wars in between boxing and mixed martial arts, so you never know when her chin's gonna give out. And like as I said before, Megan Anderson is a the problem. She hasn't faced anyone who's even within 10 Holly Holmes skill set, 10 levels of Holly Holmes experience, athleticism. All the girls she has faced have been technically, physically inferior to Holly Holm. So you're telling me, not saying you, but people are asking me, is this competitive? I can see how it'd be competitive based off of styles, based off of size. But if you put all things together, Megan Anderson is a striker. Holly Holm is undefeated with two much greater strikers in her. Down to Shevchenko, world class striker. Cyborg, the best counter puncher in women's and Jermaine Francois, another world class striker. Even Anderson has some skills, he doesn't have the depth skills or the experience necessary to really take Holly Holm out of the game and have Holm to get hit because Holly Holm is hittable with her style. Holm's
Schwan,
out.
Schwan, Schwan. I need you to stop for a second, real quick, because like you're going in and out a little bit too much. And I know you're saying some great stuff here. I know you're kind of breaking it down, but like you're really kind of going in and out too much. Like every other word, we can't hear you. So let's try to get you squared away for that. Try to get to a place where
Okay.
your signal is strong. But as you know, as some of the things I heard
Yes,
you
sir.
saying is that Holm and Anderson. This is a matchup that I think it's important for this women's featherweight division, especially with the next season of the Ultimate Fighter. One of the divisions that they are featuring is women's featherweight, and we know that they don't. There isn't a lot of depth in this division across the sport, not just within the UFC. Like I still looking at the UFC rankings. I still don't think they even have divisional rankings for this group. Yeah, they don't, and Cyborg has been a champion for more than a year now. So the question is Anderson the woman that can kind of challenge Cyborg? Are we looking at her that way, or is that asking for too much of her at this point in her career?
You got me now?
Yeah, there you go, Sean.
All right. Anderson, as I said, Anderson's got skills, but the thing is Anderson's fought similar people to Cyborg. Those people pushed Anderson. Those people weren't able to do anything against Cyborg. They're just different levels of athlete. Without Cyborg in the division, with it Anderson and maybe Holly Holm and the rest of them, Anderson would probably be, if not the champion, maybe one or maybe number one, number two contender in the division. But with Cyborg, she just doesn't have the physical tools. She doesn't have the power. She doesn't have the durability, and quite frankly, she doesn't have the level of experience. We've I just said we don't know much about Colby Covington in tough spots. We know less than that about Megan Anderson, except for the fact that she got defeated by Yana Kunitskaya, who just got curb stomped by Cyborg like 3 months ago. So as far as similar opponents, Anderson hasn't been able to do anything that Cyborg hasn't, and we know for a fact Anderson is not the athlete, nor the technician, nor the lacks the durability or physical strength of the Cyborg. I really don't think it's a competitive fight at all. The only reason people see it as such is because there's the featherweight division is so thin that anybody who shows any sort of athleticism, any sort of class in their fighting style, instantly is pushed up as a opponent of Cyborg. It's got nothing to do with Anderson being so good or so talented, because she's, in comparison to Cyborg, she's neither one of those things. I don't know that she gets past Holm either, but since the division is so thin, you throw anybody at the king or the queen of the division. Same thing would happen with Mighty Mouse. You see all these guys who didn't deserve title shots getting them. Why? Because there was no one else. The division is so thin. You got to put them in with somebody. So you find whoever you can, you put them in. The guy who's 2-1 in the UFC gets a title shot in his fourth fight because they don't have anybody else to go to, and that's essentially the case with Megan Anderson. So they're hoping she beats Holm to solidify her and make her a legitimate threat. But if Holm beats her, you can still run back the rematch with Holm, because some people saw the Holm and Cyborg fight as being competitive, even though it really was not.
Very interesting there. Very interesting there. And so let's see. Let's look at some other aspects of this card here. I mean, that brings us to the Andre Arlovski tied to Avasa fight. I'm not too intrigued in talking about. I'm looking at Tuivasa there as the favorite. But what are your thoughts about that fight? There is this something that kind of jumping off the page for you?
Given that Andre's chin is so shaky, you almost have to put anybody as a favorite. But the only thing that interests me about Andre Arlovski, and I have to give him some credit, is how many times he's reinvented himself as a heavyweight. I mean, this guy's been around for I don't know how many years, and he's gone on these huge losing streaks, and he's slowly been able to transform from one style of fighter at one stage of his career to another style of fighter, another stage of career to another stage of fighter, another stage of career. And no matter what, he's always found some way to keep himself in title talks and to put wins together. So when I watch him or any fight he's involved in, I'm always interested in it because you see a guy who's not at the peak of his powers, but is still making the necessary adjustments strategically and technically to compete with, I guess, the best people in the world. Even though heavyweight's a razor thin division, the fact that at his age, given how many fights he's been in and how many times he's lost, it's very impressive that he's still able to win fights and he's still getting fights at this level.
Yeah, I mean he's doing his damn thing. Do you think Tuivasa is someone we can see as a future contender at heavyweight? Is it because of his skill or because the division is so sparse?
Tuvasa's got skill, but I mean, to be quite honest, the main reason he has a future is because of the heavyweight division is so thin. I mean, they still don't have a legitimate heavyweight contender. That's why they had to go with a light heavyweight to fight Stipe because nobody else had enough wins put together to legitimately put them in with a champion. And the division is still thin. They don't have a personality. Basically, he's a young, athletic guy with some power, and that's always going to give you a shot at heavyweight. But as far as his accomplishments and his skills, that's not why he's considered a future prospect in the heavyweight division. It's athleticism and size.
So, all right, so yeah, how far away is Tuivasa from uh, a title shot?
Man, I mean, unless something goes terribly wrong, he's at least 4 to 5 fights. If he wins them all, 4 to 5 fights away from a title shot in the best case scenario.
True, true, true. Um, Next fight we have here, man, we have one for the pro wrestling fans. Mike Jackson, photographer, journalist, 0-1 professional fighter with a kickboxing background. Though that's an interesting caveat. He's facing former WWE champion Phil CM Punk Brooks. I don't know how they even announce him, whatever it may be, but be prepared because there are going to be some deafening CM Punk chants going on in Chicago, probably before the event even starts. CM Punk, CM Punk, CM Punk. The WWE can't even go back to Chicago without acknowledging the fact that people chant his name so much at their shows. So this guy is a draw. He's going to be having his name chanted there. But that is not enough to get him a much needed win here because I feel like this is a different story. This is someone that's not fighting to be a champion. This is not someone that's fighting to go on a win streak. He is in his 40s. He is coming off of years of, no, excuse me, he's 39. He's coming off of years of professional wrestling damage. He doesn't have the skill set of Mike Jackson when it comes to striking. He doesn't really have a skill set when it comes to grappling. If I had to grapple him right now, I'm putting money on myself. So, and I have probably about 8 years of jiu-jitsu, 10 years of wrestling. If I face him at EBI, whatever, I'm getting a win. You can book it right now. But Phil Brooks is still a big draw within the sport, and he's doing it for a different reason. This is more like of a man kind of challenging himself here. Talk to me about this fight here. What are your thoughts about what you see with Phil Brooks and Mike Jackson, and what is it that's making this fight such a lightning rod for so many people?
Well, the reason people are so upset about the fight is they don't feel like he should be on the main card. And I get that because his accomplishments don't say he should be on the main card. But the fact of the matter is, and we talked about this many times, this is show business. This is about money. If you don't have somebody drawing in fans and putting butts in seats, all the real fighters that we like to support and like to speak well of, those guys don't have jobs. They don't have an event to go to. The UFC needs stars. They need people who push interest. Bill Brooks is the guy who creates interest, so of course they're going to have him on the main part of the card. what good would it be to be on the undercard and have all these people show up to see him, and then all of a sudden have all these people leave because he's already fought in the card? And if you don't think there's people who are coming specifically just to see him fight, you're beyond ridiculous. So as a professional, I see how a fighter would be offended by it. But as a businessman, and all these fighters keep saying, "I'm a businessman. I understand finances. Treat us with respect because we understand money and how it works." If y'all really understand how money works, you're really truly businessmen. There's no way you can be upset because Bill Brooks is on the main card. I guarantee you, Robert Whitaker's not upset because he's a champion. He gets a cut of the pie. Guarantee you, Rafael dos Anjos and Colby Covington aren't upset because whoever wins out of them is going to get a piece of the pie. So they're not upset at all because this lines their wallet. And to be honest, it helps every fighter on the card because it's drawing interest and it's getting attention from platforms that would normally get attention from. So I understand it. I don't. I get it. I get why people are frustrated, but I don't understand it. I just can't. I mean, we're in a business. Everybody wants to get paid. How to get paid? Get putting butts in seats and selling pay-per-views. If all these guys want to get paid and have a platform, they need to show some respect for the guys who are drawing in attention for whatever reason.
So let's let's talk about the legacy of this here, because personally I think that if either way, win, lose, or draw, I think Punk is done from a fighting standpoint. I don't. I mean, I said it the first time. It didn't surprise me that he had future fights kind of planned out, but you have to wonder if he gets a win here. Do we think he's actually done? That's the first question.
If he wins, if I was him, I'd be done. I mean, you took a loss, you came back, you got to win. There's not going to be another matchup more favorable for him than this one, and this is a bad matchup for him. To be quite honest, this is the best he could hope for. It's not going to get any better. He's not going to get any healthier or really any better as far as competing as a professional. This is the best case scenario for him. And if he loses on this platform again, he will never be able to fight on this platform again moving forward. He'll have to fight in smaller shows, which is obviously not what he's interested in. Because I can tell you, any regional show would be glad to have CM Punk fight on their card.
So if he loses come Saturday, what is his legacy? I don't think that it's totally bad. I respect what he's doing. I don't think this is the level for it, but is his legacy a joke? And does him taking this fight and being given these fights and these opportunities hurt the UFC status?
I don't think it hurts their status because nobody believes he's really a badass. Like nobody believes that. Everybody knows that he was wrestling, pro wrestling, and that's not real fighting. And after that fight he had with Mickey Gall, everybody, it's quite clear that Phil Brooks is not, at least for professional fighters or amateur fighters, is not in any sort of competition. Given his age, like you said, and the damage he's been done, and the lack of experience he has in martial arts, um, nobody takes it seriously. So it's not a sham in that regard. In other events, they make it seem like this guy has a chance, and that's what makes that's what attacks the integrity. Nobody's saying that. So I think he's just gonna have the legacy of a basically a celebrity who tried his hand in mixed martial arts. I think that's essentially what it's going to be. That's going to be his legacy. There's nothing else to it, to be quite honest. Some people are going to look at him as a joke because they're going to say if he really wanted to take an honest stab at it, he should have went to a lower level. But I think most people are just going to say he was a celebrity who took a big swing and either won or didn't win, and they still respect him for that.
True, I think he's going to have an interesting level of respect here. In my opinion, I would not be surprised if he goes back to professional wrestling in some form. Not necessarily the WWE, but I could see him doing appearances and stuff like that because he actually is doing an appearance coming up for an event. So I would not sleep on that. The
Yeah,
next fight.
he's a businessman. He understands the game, and he's setting himself up. So you know him. Even Michael Jackson, the guy who took the fight, he's a businessman. So you can see how these guys are taking advantage of the situation. I know their motives, I think, are genuine, but that doesn't overshadow the business. They're going to make sure they're taking care of it and create some opportunities for themselves moving forward. So that's the difference between the fighters who say they're businessmen and people who actually understand business and are taking care of their business. You see that right there.
Yeah, I definitely think that he's going to have some opportunities after this, and I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what's next for him. Alistair Overeem, Curtis Blades. Again, same question as I had with Holly Holm: is has Overeem hit gatekeeper status? Is Blades trying to break through here, or is this too much too soon for Curtis?
I honestly think, looking at the fight on paper, I'm going to say the same thing I said about Ngannou. Based off actual technical skills, experience, and even though he's lost a step, physical ability and savvy, this should be a win for Overeem. He's got the better stand up. He's fought the better level of competition. He's faced guys who can grapple and guys who can wrestle. He's faced guys who can punch hard. He's faced better strikers and better grapplers than Blade. The question is, will he show that veteran poise and that veteran savvy in the fight? If he does, it should be a competitive but fairly one-sided fight in favor of Overeem. The biggest issue with Overeem, as always, is what happens when he gets hit and what happens when real pressure and physicality is put on him. Because not just his chin always seems suspect, his ability to recover seems to have gotten worse as he's gotten older, which is pretty normal. The question is, if and when he gets taken down harder, he takes a couple shots from Blade, will he be able to work his way out of a bad spot, put himself back in a good spot, and regain control of the fight? Recently in fights, once he's lost control of the fight, he hasn't been able to regain it. In all the fights he's won, he's essentially had control of the fight from beginning to end. And every time he's been in a tough spot, he's kind of folded. I still think Blades is a little one-dimensional. I know he's a smart fighter. I know he's physically tough, but I think I'm going to lean on the side of the more experienced and the more balanced fighter and say that Overeem wins by decision. Like I said, Blades is tough. Blades is very physical, and he's got a good skill set. But the fact of the matter is, he was almost had by Mark Hunt early. And had that been Alistair Overeem in that same position, I think Overeem would have finished. Overeem's a much more multifaceted fighter than Mark Hunt. You're not just going to take him down. You're not just going to back him up. You're not just going to overwhelm him with a jab and a 1-2 and take into a takedown. I think that's going to work. Overeem's been around the block with the best guys in the world for the past 10, 15 years. He's well beyond that sort of thing. For Blades to win this, he's going to have to take some to get some. And if he can take it, he should be able to put Overeem in a bad spot, and Overeem should fold as he's known to do. But I think Overeem's going to make him work to put him in any sort of spot at all. And I think that work rate and Overeem's footwork and his kind of pot shot striking nowadays is going to be the difference. So where he can win a decision or possibly stop Blade.
So let me ask you a question in here. First off, with Overeem, is he ever going to get that elusive UFC title?
Honestly, I don't think so. At this stage, if he was a little bit younger, I might say so, but his athleticism is already starting to slip. And even though he's taking a more defensive aspect to his striking, the fact of the matter is his footwork isn't really, really good when he's really, really pressured. He'll turn his back and run against a guy who can take some heat and put some pressure on him. And when he's facing guys who are really big punchers, he tends to get a little skittish and gun shy, which you don't think a 45 veteran would do, but he does that. And as we stated before, his ability to recover from take shots isn't great. His ability to recover from shots isn't great either. If we're just going off of skills and experience, I would say, yeah, at some point he'll get his hands on that belt. But the fact of the matter is, with diminishing physical athleticism and diminishing recuperative abilities and durability, I don't think he might get close, but I don't think he ever gets the belt. I mean, even though I picked him, there's a very good chance that Blades takes him out as well. He just can't take punishment very well anymore. And in the fight business, you have to be able to take some kind of punishment to win. You just can't get around that. It's like being a wide receiver who doesn't like getting hit. But you can't really be a wide receiver in the NFL because you're going to get hit and hit often.
Yeah, very true. You're going to get hit. You're going to get hit often. Next, I mean, there's so many fights to talk about on this card, man. We can't not talk about Claudia Gadelha and Carla Esparza. I think this is a perfectly paired fight too, as well, because it keeps two top contenders, one a two-time title challenger, the other being a former champion. It keeps them active. It keeps them active in an important fight, and it keeps them away from killing off any other upcoming contenders, which I think both of these women could. talk to me about that, and also what you expect from this fight on Saturday.
I would, like you said, it is very well matched because they're of a similar caliber as far as their standing and their placement in the division. So the thing about it is, Esparza, even though she can't, Esparza can afford to lose this fight. A lot of people are expecting her to lose this fight. She's facing a better athlete, a better grappler, a better wrestler, and a better striker. So her losing this fight wouldn't surprise anybody. And she's coming off of what, a 2-3 fight win streak. So a loss to Claudia Gadelha doesn't set her back a whole lot. There's still a lot of other options she had. Slowly worked her way back into contention. Claudia Gadelha, on the other hand, can't afford to lose this fight. She lost to Jessica Andrade, and it was a good fight. But towards the end, Jessica Andrade was just laying the wood to her, and it began to get very one-sided. If she loses to Carla Esparza, it's a huge hit to any chance she has of getting another title shot. I'm thinking it moves her down 3, 4, 5 spots minimum, and essentially takes her about 2 to 3, if not 3 to 4 fights away from the title. I mean, in fact, I think if she loses, she might have to consider moving up to flyweight, just because her options at strawweight would be so limited. It's going to be such a long road back unless a bunch of stuff goes wrong for other fighters. The actual fight, based on paper, it's very one-sided towards Claudia Gadelha. As I said, she's a better grappler, she's a better wrestler, she's a better striker. I actually wrote an article about this. The biggest thing Carla Esparza is going to have to do is not attack her on the technical level, but attack her on a strategical and conditioning level. Because even though Claudia is a very good fighter, she's never really been able to fight at a pace. Basically, what she does is she takes control of the fight, scares you with her power, starts walking you down, takes you down, beats you up, takes you down, submits you, and just works you over for the length of a fight for a decision win. Carla Esparza has essentially got to force her to fight at every level. She's got to engage her at every level. Punches, kicks, takedown attempts. If she gets taken down, she's got to fight to sweep, fight to reverse, fight for submissions, anything she can to force Claudia out of the pace she wants to fight in. Because once Claudia starts getting outside of that pace, even if she's winning the fight, beating up Carla Esparza, the fact of the matter is she's cutting into her own gas tank, which is notoriously suspect when having to work the full 5 minutes of a round. So what Esparza's got to do is put her in positions where she has to work. She's got to use her footwork, move around the cage, force Gadelha to chase her. She's got to start actively throwing shots. When Gadelha lands, she's got to punch her right back. When Gadelha starts putting combinations together, she'll force her against the cage and knock her out, or she'll take her down and finish her. So she's basically, she can't allow Gadelha to get any momentum on her side. She can't put 4 or 5 punches together. She can't let that happen. She can't let Gadelha push her to the fence and corner her. She can't let that happen. She has to initiate punches and takedowns, but for no other reason to make Gadelha work, to have to defend them and make her work trying to punish Esparza for attempting to take down. The main goal is it make Gadelha work for every single thing she has. And even though Gadelha is a much better athlete, if she makes it work and provide that first round or those first 2 minutes, Gadelha will flow. And once she flows, the athleticism is going to go a little bit, the technique's going to go a little bit, and then Esparza can slowly start chipping away and see if she can turn the fight in her favor. Essentially, she's got to do a version of what she did to Cynthia Calvillo. The only difference is Cynthia Calvillo is a class below Gadelha as far as athleticism and experience. So essentially, what she did to Gadelha is what she's got to attempt to do versus Gadelha to win this fight. But it is an uphill battle, and you have to favor Gadelha. She's just a better class of fighter.
True that. True that. Same question that we saw with Overeem here. Esparza being a one-time champion, do either one of these women get the belt back? Get the belt or get the belt back?
If Esparza beats Gadelha, there's a good chance she might get a fight with Rose Namajunas, because Andrade will be ahead of her as far as a fighter, but you have a backstory between Rose and Esparza, because Esparza beat her pretty one-sidedly and finished her, and she looked good doing it. And they were in the tough house together. He finished her for her first championship, and at one point, Esparza was the #1 strawweight in the world, or considered it by most people, her and Jessica Aguilar. So if she beats Gadelha, there's not much of a better winning division outside of Andrade. But even she would leapfrog Andrade, is that 3 fights in a row, she beat the #3 girl in division, and she's already got to win over the champion. That's the situation that the UFC loves. As far as Gadelha, if she beats Esparza, I still say she's 2 fights away from the title. If she has to fight Andrade, she has to touch her, but it's a really tough fight. Otherwise, she's going to have to beat 2 or 3 other highly ranked strawweights to be in position to get to Rose, unless, as I said before, someone gets injured or something happens. I don't think Cordelia has a big enough fan base, nor do I think people a win over Esparza is going to do enough to excite people to want to see that fight. They're going to have to see more from her. I mean, she might have to fight Joanna again to get a shot at Rose.
True, true. I'm not going to disagree with you that. All right, let's keep it moving, man, because we got quite a bit to talk about here. I don't want to hit on too much else. We'll talk about it kind of in a group, other than this Joseph Benavidez Sergio Pettis fight. Our good friend and colleague Adam Martin wrote about this fight being buried on Fight Pass, and he called it an error in UFC ways. I'm not sure if I totally agree with that, because I think that this is an opportunity for it to draw some attention, and it's all about kind of like slot placement. But what are your thoughts about this fight from a stylistic matchup? I think this is like the second or third time they tried to make this fight here. Again, it's kind of similar to what we saw with the Gadelia Esparza fight, where it's good matchmaking. Benavidez losing to the champion twice. Pettis has kind of struggled to get there, dropping a fight to Henry Cejudo along the way. What are your thoughts about this fight here, and how are you breaking it down?
It's very good matchmaking. Basically, Pettis and Benavidez are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to jump the line. Benavidez beats Pettis. He's on a win streak. He can say, "I beat this guy who's won what 4 out of his last 5." If Pettis beats him, he can say, "I beat this guy who's on a 7-fight win streak and has challenged for the title multiple times, so that should jump me ahead." So basically, they're trying to jump the line by fighting one another. As far as stylistically, in a certain way, this fight reminds me of the Esparza Gadelia fight, because Benavidez he's a far more experienced guy. He's a more durable guy. He's got more power. He's a better athlete. He's a better wrestler. I wouldn't say he's a more diverse striker, but as far as how effective he's been with his striking and the layers and the damage he can do with it, he might in fact be the better striker than Sergio Pettis as well. So it's going to come down to, can Sergio, A, how healthy is Benavidez? Is he 100% back? How sharp can he be? And B, is Sergio able to enact a strategy that can allow him to basically take over the fight, to neutralize Benavidez's advantages in physicality and explosiveness? Basically, he's going to have to stick and move, and he's going to have to, I would say, he's going to have to touch each other a little bit and counter. Because it's the same thing with the Gadelia fight. You can't let Benavidez start putting combinations together. I know for a fact Benavidez can take Pettis' power. A lot of guys with lesser chance now. I also know for a fact Pettis cannot handle Joseph Benavidez' power. Benavidez can knock him out. Benavidez can manhandle him. Benavidez can out wrestle him. So what Pettis is going to have to do is basically stick and move, try to defend Benavidez a little bit, walk him into counter, and if he can walk him into counter, gets the body, kind of gets the legs a little bit, then he can back him up and kind of assert himself and basically, just picking him apart on the feet, jab with the kick to the body. But if he can back Benavidez off, he can't exhaust him. Benavidez should run him over. And Pettis is not very good when he's on the back foot. When he's forced on the back foot, he's not very good in exchanges with heavy hitters. And he has a bad penchant to kind of admiring his work a little bit, and against a guy who sits like Benavidez, who's dynamic as Benavidez, helpless, that's a very bad recipe in fight. So essentially, it's going to come down to Pettis and his team's strategy and ability to adjust mid-round or in between rounds. And it's going to come down to Joseph Benavidez's physicality, athleticism, and his pedigree as a fighter. As I said before, he hasn't been active, so it'd be hard for me to pick him. And the fact of the matter is, based on who they've beaten and where they've been in the sport, it's hard not to pick Benavidez. Even though he should be on the decline, he should still be a better caliber, at least a level or two higher than Pettis right now. Pettis, I think, is as good as he's going to get, and he still lacks the physical tools to really turn the fight around or dominate a fight physically. He's not his brother. He doesn't have those physical tools. So if Benavidez is still a legit guy who's not completely shot, I don't see how he loses this fight.
Interesting breakdown there, man. Interesting breakdown. It's kind of funny, we're kind of having this trend here. Do you think either one of these guys will ever be champion, flyweight champion?
If Benavidez wins, I don't know that he'll be flyweight champion because he hasn't found a way to beat Johnson yet. I mean, I guess it always could happen, but he should get a title shot. He was on like a 6 or 7 fight win streak. He would have beat a top 5 ranked guy, and that fight, even though it's not super, it wouldn't be super popular. Just like the fight between Pettis and Benavidez isn't super popular, it would be the most interesting fight to make at this stage in the division. I mean, who else we got? Cejudo versus Johnson. Nobody really wants to see that. Nobody wants to really see Johnson versus Pettis either. So I think Benavidez has a chance to at least challenge for the title at least once more if he can win this fight, and he's going to have to because I don't think his career is going to last 3, 4 more years at this level. So as far as Pettis, I don't know that he's got enough to get past the elite guys who will be in his way on the way to a title shot. I don't know that he can beat. I don't know that he can beat Benavidez. I don't know that he can still beat Cejudo. I don't know that he can beat Demetrius Johnson. And there's a couple other guys who would be a 50-50 bet with him. He's just not a good enough athlete as far as his explosiveness and his power, and he's not the most durable guy. You can put him in bad spots very easily, and you can hurt him on the feet. You can land one shot and turn it all around on him because he's not as durable as Anthony. Anthony's a much better athlete, much bigger hitter, much better, much more durable guy. And Pettis doesn't have Sergio does not have any of those things to lean on. He basically gets by on experience, skill, and good game planning, and that's great against a certain caliber of fighter. But just like when you saw against Cejudo, with a certain caliber of fighter, he's in with a certain caliber of fighter, all his limitations start to show. And no matter how well prepared he is and how diverse he is, he's unable to overcome those limitations to good coaches. It's the same thing as NFL. You know, NFL, you could have a lesser team. At some point, talent rises to the top. You can team somebody, you can direct somebody, but if you don't have the horses, you can't get the win.
True, man. That's some key analysis there. I'm intrigued in this fight as well too, man. As I mentioned, this card from top to bottom is worth watching. I saw someone on Twitter talking about this fight isn't worth the money. Totally disagree with them. If you are a fight fan,
Oh
sit
yeah.
down, watch this fight
One
from
more
start
thing.
to finish.
One more thing I wanted to say. Having it on the prelims, it's going to be on the prelims, right?
The Benavidez Pettis fight is on Fight Pass, I believe.
Oh wow.
It
Okay. I was
might.
thinking if it was on prelims.
I think it's on Fight Pass.
If it's on, I can see why it'd be on prelims because a lot of people watch the prelims, and Benavidez is a familiar name. Pettis is a familiar name. So if it's an exciting fight and the next challenger comes from that fight, you would get a lot of coverage and a lot of attention from it. So being on prelims makes sense to me. Being on Fight Pass, not too sure about that one. Now that's confusing me. Prelims I get on Fox or whatever or FS1, that makes some sense to me. On Fight Pass, nah, man, I don't get that at all. That they lost me on that one.
Yeah, I believe it is on Fight Pass, my good man. So before we move on, like let's talk about that main event from last Friday, where we saw a finish come in quick fashion, 33 seconds. Um, yeah, I mean
Oh,
one hit
Mar-
kill.
yeah, Marais and what was his name? Rivera.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to say I was shocked by that, but I just really wasn't. I never bought into Jimmy Rivera. We talked about multiple fights he's planning to be in or he wants to be in, and every time we talked about the fights, the first thing I've said is he's great on his initial scouting. If you're gonna fight the way you fought the past 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, or the last 2 or 3 fights, he's gonna have you scouted. He's gonna have counters. He's gonna be able to break you down, take you down, either take you out or build such a lead that you're gonna have to knock him out to win the fight. But if you have any new wrinkles, you have any new tricks, if you figured him out and what he's trying to do, he's got no ability to adjust. If you've actually taken the time to break down his game, read his counters, and figure him out, that's what's gonna happen. He was fighting Moraes. He came out there, he was trying to find his range. He overextended with his jab, and basically he just got kicked in the head. He overextended and he kind of dipped a little bit on the jab, and the guy just went right over and kicked him in the head. He was wide open. He was leaning in. He was over because of Mariah's footwork and how he was taking little hop steps in and out. And once Mariah saw him reach, he just blasted him. There was nothing about it. Basically, if he would have sat down on the jab and just shot it out and brought it right back, he would have been fine. Because the arm would have been quickly for the kick. The fact for it was set him up and ran him in with the
You're
kick.
breaking up
That
there,
was
man.
the story.
Oh, I'm sorry. He basically, if he just wouldn't have reached with it, he would have been all right. If he'd have been feigning with the jab and jabbing his way in like behind multiple jabs, he would have been fine. But he reached with his jab. He reached and he dipped in, and that's when Mariah caught him with the kick. And there was nothing he could have done about it, given that he was reaching for it. He couldn't he couldn't manage a distance. He couldn't gauge the distance. So he overextended trying to get to Mariah, and Mariah just countered him. And basically, I mean, it's the same weakness that's always been there. He's gonna scout you. He's looking for certain things, and if you figure out what he's looking for, you'll blow him out every single time because he's not a guy who can make a quick adjustment. He's not a guy who has wrinkles in his game. His plan is tough. There's his toughness and athleticism. If plan A doesn't work, he's leaning on toughness and athleticism to come through it. This time, toughness and athleticism.
Okay, okay. Um, Man, I had some other topics that I wanted to talk about, but I really feel like we went through a full show this week. We can come back to some of those news items that we had from the rest of last week. But man, let people know what you're working on. Yo, you did a great piece on Gadelia and Esparza heading into this weekend. Tell us where you can find some more of your work for this week.
That was the only thing I did. I like doing these articles, but you have to look at tape so closely. It's you have to watch it to like because a lot of people look at this techniques. If you look at a lot of analysts, they want to give you a decision. I want to tell you how the fight could go because that's where the actual and we talked about this before how the actual analysts do it. The real analysts, the guys I respect, Patrick Wyman, Conor Rebish, Dan Tom, other people you have to be able to tell people how the fight could or would go, not just who would win. That's easy. Anybody can make a pick and explain it. How could the fight go in your favor? How could the fight go against your favor? And a lot of people are kind of technique Nazis. He used this technique, he used this kick, and he used this sweep, and he used this guard. That's great. There's a place for that. I value that. I'm not the greatest technique person, so I'm not downplaying that. Well, what I look at is kind of like patterns in the guy's fighting style, patterns in the person's habits. That's why I always say don't attack the technique, attack the person's character. Someone who wants to brawl is going to be there to get countered all day because he wants to pull it first, but he's going to brawl. A guy who wants to counter isn't going to throw enough volume to beat you because he's always looking for that clean shot. So when I watch these videos, I have to really get a feel for their personality, a feel for their habits, a feel for how they respond in different situations. Not technically, but how they physically and mentally respond through their body language and their actions. So it requires a lot of film watch to really get a full grasp on what they're doing so that I can give analysis that's a little bit different than what everybody else is giving. So that was the only thing I did this week. Sorry for the long explanation. I just wanted people to kind of get a better understanding of how I approach it. But in the next week, I'll be having. I was going to do something on Tavares' fight. Obviously, that's not going to happen. So
Yeah,
now I got to scrap
I
that.
just saved you some work there. I
Yeah,
just saved
thank
you.
God. I've had a couple ones. I've actually done them, sent them in, got them published, and oh, so and so that with injury. Well, that's just great. I just wasted my time for anything. But
I saved you some
I don't
work
know what
there.
I'll be doing, but I will have some parts, especially covering women's mixed martial arts, because MMA ratings podcast, MMA ratings, and myself are one of the few who give women's mixed martial arts in-depth, comprehensive analysis. I'm challenging you to go to other sites, not just the big ones, the Schwan and the Clears. Look how they bring fights. Come to our site, look at some of my work, even look at some of my work on other sites. Look at the depth and detail that I go in for girls who are second fight, Christina Williams, girls who are dethrone champions like Carla Esparza, girls like Felice Herrig. I cover all different levels, not just the names, not just the popular people, not just the champion. I bring the respect and attention to detail that all the male fighters get on every single card. Watch the difference between the analysis for the male fighters, top to the bottom, and the analysis for the women fighters, top to the bottom. You will see a drop off in quality, detail, and analysis and level of analysis, except when Schwan Humes is writing that article. You will see the same, if not better, analysis for any female fighter compared to any male fight, big or small.
Good thoughts there, man. As always, I'm steady at the grind. Got a bunch of stuff coming out, so just keep everything going. And there's going to be a lot of content, but this is a pretty interesting
Listen,
time
like
in
I
the
fully
sport, man.
expect to work how much you work.
Say it again.
I had a guy at a job was delivering something and he sounded like you, and I was like, found some job where he's down in Texas right now. and it wasn't you. And I was like, I fully expected it to be you because you're working everywhere. You're everywhere. You're all over the world. You're all over the United States. You're always doing something. So I fully expected one day go into some business and see you there and be like, what are you doing in Texas, dude? Go home.
I mean, hey, I'm surprised I haven't been called out there for something yet.
Turn your phone off. Turn your social media. I see you on social media. We got problems, homie. Go to sleep. Get some rest.
I'm gonna try one of these days, but not tonight, probably.
My kids told me to tell you that. They're like, hey, he always doing something. Tell him to go to sleep. Like I keep telling him, he don't listen to me. You can't tell this man nothing. He don't listen to nothing I say. But I'm gonna say it. Y'all all heard me say it on the radio, on podcast. Y'all heard me say it. You see him on social media. Tell him go to sleep, get some rest. You're working too hard, man. Leave something for some of us to do.
One of these days, maybe one of these days, we'll see. But as always, man, thank you for joining the show. I appreciate having you on, and we'll be back to talk next. Well, actually, no, we won't be back to talk next week. I'm going to be on a actual vacation. We'll talk more about that later on in the week. But next week we will not be having a show. We'll be back the week after that.
Okay, hey, that's all I want to hear. Vacation, magic word. We cool now.
No problem. With that in mind, man. Thanks everybody.
All
Have
right,
a
man,
great
take
night.
it easy.